What's up, guys? This is Techno Viking 23 coming to you today with an Anthem video. Anthem's a game we have not talked about or played in quite a while. This game came out in February of last year and was arguably one of the biggest gaming flops of 2019. Very disappointing launch for a game that was very hyped up by EA and Bioware. And quite honestly, in my opinion, probably the worst overhyped game since Aliens Colonial Marines and the whole debacle that Gearbox went through with that game. But I'd have to do a whole separate video to get into that. But we all pretty much know the story of Anthem at this point. Was not what was advertised at any of the E3 shows or any of the previews they gave of the game. A very disappointing launch. This is actually a game when it came out, $60 to $70 game, more than that in some cases. If you bought one of the collector editions or the crazy over $100 editions, I feel kind of bad for you. And then within about 3 weeks, the game was like in the $9.99 bargain bin. Just a total fall from grace very early on. Now, I'm going to be honest, there are some things I really did enjoy about Anthem. Obviously, you get the whole Iron Man fantasy of being able to get this mech suit in your javelin and fly around, and the combat was kind of fun at first. All the javelins are really cool, very interesting designs, the ability to customize and do the skins and put the different parts on and the different weapons. All very cool. Unfortunately, the gameplay, it got very repetitive. It was very boring. The weapons were very uninspired. The enemies are very uninspired. The combat loop winds up just becoming this boring, monotonous grind. And the loot is really not all that exciting or anything to write home about. Well, throughout 2019, BioWare did their best to try to add more stuff into the game to do, but it just wasn't working. And more came out about just how absolutely botched the development process was, and oddly enough, it turned out to be mostly BioWare's fault and not EA's fault. In fact, I believe BioWare was going to take flight out of the game and some other mechanics, and EA basically told them, absolutely not. You have to have flying in the game that you've been advertising for such a long time. And then, of course, it turned out that most of the preview stuff they showed of the game was just, it wasn't in the actual game. So a lot of disappointment there. But the question is this a game that, after it's been out for over a year, we're in August now of 2020, and they're supposedly remaking the game behind the scenes, similar to what happened with No Man's Sky. They're working on a whole bunch of stuff, and supposedly they're going to update the game and make all these big changes and things and improve it. But for the most part, they've been very silent about that. Up until, I believe, this week, they did finally post a blog about what they're working on and what their first changes are that they're planning, although they haven't given any kind of date yet. But the fact that they've been so quiet about it, to me, is not a good thing. And quite honestly, after Mass Effect Andromeda and then Anthem, I really don't have any trust left for BioWare. EA is a completely different story, obviously, with the negative. But with BioWare, it's like, I think they're working on the new Dragon Age game, and they've rumored a Mass Effect trilogy remastered and a new Mass Effect game at the same time. But they're going to have to work really, really hard to get me back as a consumer of their products after their last few releases. But anyway, so the other night I was kind of bored, burned out on Destiny once again. That's another video for another day, talking about Destiny 2 and the constant burnout with that game that you experience. But decided to jump on my Xbox and jump on Anthem and just see what was going on with the game. It had been a very long time, probably at least 6 or 7 months. I think I played it around Christmas time maybe, but wanted to just jump back in and see what was going on with the game. So getting back in, it was kind of fun at first, going through my different javelins, looking at the different items and, outfitting everything and getting back into the flow of the game. Jumped in, started playing a little bit, mainly just did some free roam and flew around and fought some enemies. Tried to do some of the matchmaking activities, and quite honestly, on Xbox, it seems like the game is pretty much dead. It took forever to get me into any matchmaking activities, and quite often when it finally got there, there was usually only one other person, sometimes two if I was lucky. And just overall, it wasn't a great experience. So played for a couple hours. At first, the game was really fun. Like I said, you get in there and you've got that whole Iron Man fantasy going on. You're flying through the air. You feel like you're moving so fast, and you're doing all these moves and dodging enemy fire and returning fire with your weapons and your abilities. And game just felt really good. The gameplay mechanics are pretty good in this game. They've always been good. The problem is that only lasts for so long. And after about 2 hours, I just realized I'm like, man, this game is so boring. There's just nothing to do in the game. The enemy factions are pretty boring. You've got this massive, like, well, it seems massive, like this open world that you can fly around in, and there's really nothing to do in it. It looks great. It's a beautiful game, especially in 4K, or if you're playing it on PC. Absolutely beautiful game visually. But there's nothing there. There's nothing to do. And the loot is very uninspired. Every single gun looks and feels almost the same. And even when you get like a great orange drop, a masterwork drop or something, it's basically just the regular weapon that they put like a somewhat okay skin on it and gave it better stats. There's no incentive to really play the game or go do the hard rewarding content because none of the drops are really that good. And in their blog post this week, that's actually something they addressed that they were working on revamping for this big update they're supposedly going to do for the game. It was making the loot better, adding in more types of loot, putting the cosmetics and stuff more loot based. And why I'm really not too excited for that is because none of the loot in the game right now is inspiring or cool or really that great. The loot is all very bland. The designs are all very bland. Everything looks the same, like I said, and very repetitive. They just kind of used one gun bottle for everything, and they just made, like, if you get a common weapon or a green or a blue or a purple, there's really no difference in the design of the weapon. Nothing looks cool. It's all very basic. Even the gun sounds, the gun mechanics all sound very basic. It doesn't feel cool to shoot your weapon. It's very, very hollow feeling. Now, using the Javelin's other abilities, like the different weapons you have, especially if you're playing the Colossus and using like the Flame Mortar and all these cool guns that the Colossus has mounted on it, that feels good. That feels really awesome. Everything sounds different. It's got its own unique feel to it. But the overall loot drops and the weapons in the game are just really boring and really bland, kind of like everything else. And them saying, "Oh, hey, we're going to come out and we're going to fix this. We're adding in more types of loot. We're adding in more types of weapons and other things." Like, I'm sorry, I don't have any faith because what you made in the base game is not good at all. And if your promise to us is that you're going to put more stuff in the game similar to that, I don't really see how that's going to be all that great. So I don't know, guys. Right now, I can't really suggest trying to get back into Anthem because there's really just still nothing to do in this game. It's very unfortunate because this could have been a really cool game if we had seen, what they were showing at E3 actually come to life when Anthem dropped. This big open, massive multiplayer world where you can jump into these events and things that happen spontaneously. Instead, you're stuck in this huge open map where at maximum you can get 4 players in it, and it's almost impossible to find anybody else to do anything with. If you do find like a giant roaming titan or anything, there's usually nobody else around to help you with it. And the world events are just kind of bland and boring where you fight the same NPCs over and over and over again. There's really no investment in the narrative. There's no immersion in the storyline. And after a couple hours, you're just kind of like, why am I playing this game? There's just no point to it. It doesn't feel good. It gets pretty boring and repetitive. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch this whole saga with Anthem and the fact that EA and Bioware are still investing time and developing things behind the scenes for this game to supposedly remake it. It just seems kind of odd to me. At this point, you'd almost want to see them just let this game go and put their effort into other areas because I really just don't think it's going to get any better. But as I said, title of the video, is it worth returning to Anthem in 2020? I don't think so. It's if you're looking for a game where you just have an hour to kill and you want to jump in and fly around and blow up some stuff, yeah, it's kind of fun. But Destiny's good for that too, and there's plenty of other games right now that are good for doing that, just wasting some time and blowing off some stress. But if the game is cheap and you haven't checked it out yet, it might be worth it. You might get maybe, I don't know, 30 or 40 hours of gameplay out of it if you're lucky, which if you get it for $10 is might be worth it. But other than that, it's not worth it for more than spending an hour or two just brainlessly shooting at the same mindless enemies over and over again. So, anyways, guys, let me know if you have tried Anthem out recently and what your thoughts are. If you have any hope for the game being remade as BioWare and EA have said that they're working on, or if you think this game is still just a giant waste of time. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for me. Hope you guys are having a great day. Thanks as always for watching, and I will see you again next time.